3 investigators from Canada's Transportation Safety Board are in St. Maarten trying to find out why that WestJet flight had a hard landing on Sunday. Passengers and crew were evacuated by slide, but no one was seriously injured. Our next guest has been on the scene today investigating the hard landing. Ewan Tasker is Manager of International Operations and Major Investigations at the Transportation Safety Board of Canada, and he joins us from the airport in St. Maarten. Ewan, thank you very much for speaking with us. Tell us what you were doing today.
We arrived, me and my team arrived here about midday today and got to work right away. So we met with a larger a team of people here as well. So that included individuals from not only WestJet, but also the Airline Pilots Association, of course, the St. Maarten Civil Aviation Authority. The Dutch Safety Board is here with us as well as more people coming from Boeing and others. So we initially met with the team, to first understand what they have found so far and the information that they've gathered so far. And then we were able a little while ago to get out to the aircraft itself and start our initial inspection of the aircraft, which is more of a routine, basic, not say to the small details, but getting the larger picture of understanding what happens. And then some subsequent meeting and planning as to what we're going to go do from there forward tomorrow as well. So well underway, and it's going to be a busy period.
From a media perspective, one of the unusual things about this incident is that it unfolded on a live stream on the internet, and there was a camera at the airport that basically was rolling the whole time as the evacuation of the plane happened, and even when the plane was moved yesterday. From an investigator standpoint, I mean, I think that's just the beginning of what must be a treasure trove of data and evidence that you have access to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, more and more these days we see videos of accidents being available, which is terrific help for us. In the case of a place like St. Maarten, of course, it's a very popular area, especially for aircraft approaching the runway. A lot of people like to video that area, and so the amount of video available for this one is just incredible. Not only from infrastructure video, but also from tourists and other people watching the aircraft. So it is an immense help, especially in the early days of understanding exactly what may have occurred in those initial stages.
Right, and video just the beginning. Obviously, you have all the passengers, you have all the crew, all safe and sound, all able to speak. You have the flight data recorders, which clearly, I assume, would have been rolling and not damaged in all of this. So does that make the investigation longer because you have all of that, or does it make it easier, or both?
Oh, I would actually probably say it does make it easier to some extent. So when we don't have data, we have to, use the limited data we have to try to understand and analyze what happened. When we have good, solid data, such as would come from a flight data recorder and a cockpit voice recorder, but also augmented by, as you mentioned before, interviews or statements from people on board or people who saw things, as well as good quality video and pictures and audio. Yeah, it's an immense help because we can really nail down what certainly happened, and then we can analyze the details of that to better understand why it happened. So when we know what happened, it makes it much, much easier to determine why.
Are there any things, even in these early hours, that you can at least exclude? So, for example, weather. You can see what the weather data is and say, okay, this was not a factor. Are there things that clearly weren't contributing causes?
Yeah, I would say we certainly never, or I shouldn't say never, but are unlikely to rule anything out so early in an investigation. In any investigation, we'll sure have ideas that things where we want to examine further, but we definitely don't rule anything out, especially early on like this. So right now we're in that information gathering phase or data gathering phase where we'll gather all that data. So when you talk about the weather, for example, you'd be amazed at the sources of weather there are. Of course, there's video, like we said before, but there's also all sorts of weather sensors, et cetera. There's other people's impressions of the weather. There's weather in the tower. There's weather forecasting. There's weather aftercasting, et cetera. So we do like to gather all of that data and then to really have a thorough look at it before we'll simply rule things out. Because as you can imagine, you may be inclined to rule something out, and it turns out after thorough examination of everything that something pops up that really you hadn't thought of before. So we like to make sure we do a thorough dive before we do any such ruling out.
This was a Boeing 737, and it comes at a time when the Boeing company has seen lots of questions about various models of planes. I think one of the landing gears collapsed, or at least it appeared to in the video that we could see there. Is there any urgency in this to find out if there's anything structurally problematic that might lead to warnings to airlines, other airlines that use this particular aircraft?
Well, so there's nothing we have found yet to indicate that. However, that's why we act on these things really quickly, right? So that's why we need to deploy and gather the data and share that data and information real quickly. So as you mentioned in this case, we did see that the right main landing gear did fail on touchdown or shortly thereafter. So we need to understand why that occurred. But also on top of that, we need to share what we know and what we find out quickly with those parties that can take action quickly. So that's why that's one of the reasons why we cooperate and have the participation of all these other organizations. So we have, of course, WestJet here, and they're very interested. So is, of course, the Airline Pilots Association. We have Transport Canada, the Canadian aviation regulator. We have Boeing coming tomorrow to look at it more thoroughly. And so that's the real key, is that everybody gets a chance to see that information firsthand, especially and look at the gear themselves. And then so that if there is something wrong, which we don't know at this time yet, that those parties can act on it quickly. And if necessary, we can provide recommendations to have those parties act on it if necessary.
One last thing, who's in charge here? There's so many different agencies, some government, some industry. Who's running the investigation?
Yeah, so it's an interesting case. Normally, the state of occurrence, that's the state of where the accident or event happens, is tasked with instituting the investigation as per international convention. Sometimes, depending on the resources available to those states, if it's a relatively small state, they may choose to delegate that investigation. So that was the case here. So in the case of St. Maarten, although connected to the Netherlands, they are their own autonomous country. And so, as you can imagine, it's relatively small island resources, whether those be human or financial or expertise or facilities, might be fairly limited. So they chose in this case to delegate the investigation to the Transportation Safety Board. So that's what I'm doing down here, is leading now leading the investigation into the accident for the Transportation Safety Board of Canada.
Well, I have to say, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada has generally been very good in terms of transparency and dealing with the media, and that is happening again here today. Ewan, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
Ewan Tasker, Manager of International Operations and Major Investigations at the Transportation Safety Board of Canada.